Okay, great. So, welcome, folks. Thanks again so much for joining us. By way of introduction, my name is Michi. I'm currently in South Bend, Indiana, but originally from the Philippines. And I'm the Director of Product Strategy for International here at PowerSchool. And today, our session will be focusing on the main question: Are you AI ready? And we'll specifically break that into two chunks. The first is evaluating AI applications and giving all of you some tools and tricks and key questions to ask during your diligence process for any of the AI tools that you're currently trying to take into your school or district or organization. And then the second portion as well on ensuring organizational readiness. So even after you select that application or tool or suite of application or tools, how do you actually then make sure that the entire organization is ready to accept and implement that as well? So yeah, so as part of this, we have two great speakers for you here today from the PowerSchool side. So Kellie and Ravi. So I'll actually have them introduce themselves, but knowing them personally, they are both wonderful and incredibly knowledgeable on the space. And so very excited to hear what they have to say. So yeah, I'll hand it over to Kellie to introduce herself first.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kellie Ady. I'm the Senior Director of Education Strategy, also here at PowerSchool. I'm actually calling it from Denver today. I started my education career over 30 years ago in Denver Public Schools, actually, and eventually moved into an ed tech director role in a neighboring district here in the metro area, and was responsible really for the rollout and adoption of things that were district provided technology tools. So that included pretty large Chromebook rollout at the time. It was, I think it was the third largest in the US. This is back in like 2012. And really thinking through how do we not only like roll out technology tools, but really roll them out thoughtfully and think about how that's ideally supposed to impact student learning. So I'll be kind of tackling the second part of what Michi was talking about, which is, organizationally, how can we make sure that we're ready for the instructional implications of this shift that we're seeing with AI? And I'll turn it over to Ron.
Morning, all. My name is Ravi Kittu, and I'm part of the product team at PowerSchool, which has a very exciting job, which is building personalized learning and AI products for schools. I'm based out of our Bangalore office, and by way of background, I spent the last 13 years in ed tech, chasing the holy grail that I think every ed tech has been chasing, which is building technology that enables personalized learning in schools at scale. That's always, always there was marginal progress, but still very far from the potential. But over the past year with AI, suddenly it feels like the promised future is here. So I'm very excited to be here having this conversation. Thank you for joining. So we have this slide here. If just to understand more about the audience and the backgrounds you're all from, there's a code there. If you could just take a minute to scan and just align on your current role and which schools, organizations you're representing.
Michi, this is the first time I've seen this particular tool. Just random side note. Like I use Menti a lot for these. I've never seen Slido.
Slido, yeah. I like Slido because it's so easy to integrate into a deck. So see here, you can
Fair.
see participants typing at the
Yeah.
top. Yeah, which is really great. So yeah. Hi, folks. I know some of you all are joining us just now. So we just did a quick round of introductions of our speakers, and now we're having everybody share a little bit about their role and organization that they represent. So yeah.
music teacher, K2 elementary, heading up international expansion, kindergarten teacher, second grade. Awesome. So thanks so much for taking the time to do that. That gives us a background of the audience and who we are talking to. Thank you so much. So what I'll do over the next slides is speak about some background of our AI journey by way of context, so you know where we are coming from, and the potential of AI, and then speak about how to evaluate AI solutions and what we are hearing from districts that we are speaking to. This is PowerSchool. As you might have guessed, we are not a school. We build technology to help schools. We're based out of Folsom, California, and have been serving schools for the last 23 years. And today we serve 50 million students. 80% plus students in North America use at least one of our software. 90% of our school districts use our software. And actually, you know, we have footprint across 90 plus countries. The interesting thing about this is we've been fortunate at the scale at which we've been working, because it is today helping us leverage AI better, because ultimately effective AI requires two things. First, the AI technology itself, which is now becoming very good. And second is the data behind the AI. And we have data for 50 million students over many years. And so that has actually put us in a position where we could start taking the lead on this. So that's been fortunate for us. Next slide, Michi. First, a recap of the state of AI in education itself. There's been so much conversation that is happening, so much buzz. And what we're seeing is that a lot of this is now real, the real products in the hands of users solving real problems. And we're seeing validation from school districts and users of how valuable it is becoming for them. Over the next slide, I'll talk about some of the problems. I'll just recap quickly what are the problems that we are seeing AI is addressing, and some examples of where we are seeing school districts using it. So, you know, start with the educator challenges, right? So, and these are from data from reputed research reports, as well as talking and interviewing several districts. Teachers are spending 7 to 12 hours a week searching for instruction material, as an example, right? And even with that time spent, it is a struggle to find the right content, the right level for their students, and the rigor that the teachers need in this content. And the question still remains, is this content vetted? Are they high quality? Is it engaging enough? So this is an example of a problem that AI is already addressing today. And the second is about teacher, you know, how much time they're spending on teaching. 50 hours a week, of which only half is spent with students, and the others on other things that can be helped with AI. So a lot of possibilities to address here. Next. Okay. And from the districts we have spoken to, a vast majority of them agree that you know, personalized learning technology can help them, and they need that help. And if you look at the next slide, of course, it's not just teachers, but AI has impact across multiple persona, right? From students in helping address their learning gaps, in truly helping you know, personalized learning to address them where they are. You know, classroom of 20 to 40 students, it's very hard for a teacher to really personalize learning, right? Even the best teacher with the best intention, they don't have the time to personalize learning for each of those students. So there is AI can help there now. And in terms of the teacher's time itself, we saw the example of the 7 to 12 hours creating content, but looking for content, but also other ways, such as creating assessments, evaluating assessments. All of those areas we are seeing AI is making an impact. And then there's parents bringing the daily life of students in schools right in front of them, and helping them in ways that they can help their kids do better in school. And of course, administrators and even beyond school districts, state officials. For example, we have worked with on a product where which helps high school students in career planning, and the state officials can really share data on which are the jobs that are going to be there 5-10 years, and encouraging students to pursue them. So those are examples of AI having tremendous impact across different persona. And I want to share some of the examples, again, by way of context of some things, some of the applications that AI is actually helping schools with. This is for teachers, and you see it's an assessment creation. So I'm a teacher, and I need to create assessments. I just finished a class, and I want to deliver an assessment to students. And here I can just go in and choose a specific standard I'm teaching to, and describe what I need, the probability using real world examples. And I'm saying this has to be at level grade 3 in an average difficulty. And within a matter of minutes, I've got all the questions that I need with their answers. So this really, multiple things. It saves so much time for teachers. Second is, normally they wouldn't go and do frequent assessments because of the effort required in creating these, but now they can create it and make it a regular part of their week. And again, it's tailored to subjects, reading levels, difficulty. So this is an example of what's actually being used and being effective. Another example is for students. So let me, on the next slide, show you. This is an example of a learning assistant for students, right? So often, so this is an example in which it's on mitosis. And now I might have missed that class, or I might have attended the class but not paying attention, or I might have tried paying attention, but really don't understand some of the prerequisites. So we know that there are a lot of students who are behind in class, or they could be ahead and they want to learn more about the topic. So again, if all of them come have a conversation with the teacher, that's still hard for the teacher to manage time. So this is an example of a learning assistant in the hands of a student, which the teacher can decide to put in this context. So there's an assignment that the teacher is given on mitosis, and she or he is enabled the assistant to give more reinforced learning for student. So as a student, I can, that's a buddy, I can ask questions. It's guiding me through topics, subtopics on that. So this is I can spend time on to really catch up on the subject and fully understand it. Again, these are integrated within the context of learning. So I'm not going to ChatGPT, and it's also it can combine other learning elements, right? Pulling videos at my learning level. So there are this is another use case where students are today taking advantage of AI. And the nice thing is when vendors plug this into the systems, this, for example, can know context. Already before I asked a question, it can know that I'm in 4th grade and this is the topic I'm learning. What is the past exam I've taken? What kind of difficulties I've typically had? So it has full context on students, and students can learn. That's an example. And for a couple of other examples of what AI can help with parents and administrators, this image here, for example, the system finds that Max is falling behind in reading. So it thinks he needs encouragement at home. So it can send a note to parents. Max is behind on reading. Maybe you can spend time with him. And such as resources for parents to actually do that, help with Max. There's also plenty of ways AI helps administrators today in terms of reporting, in terms of insights. And we are experimenting with technology that we call talk to your data, right? So I don't need to know SQL. I don't need to know I don't need to go ask an IT professional to go create a report for me. I could type, can you give me the students who are behind in this chapter? And it's going to look at the SQL, pull the data, and give it to you. So again, these are all use cases that are live today and being used and effective. Next slide, Michi. Okay, so all right, so we all believe in the transformative power of AI, but 2 questions. How should we consider which tools to use? I'm going to spend some time on that. And the second is, how do we ensure our classrooms and schools are ready to implement AI? What do we need to do to bring in that change management? And Kelly will speak to that. So the next slide, Michi. Kelly, you want to take over and speak to these few slides? And then I'll come back to slide or two.
Absolutely. So one of the questions we have is just how confident are you in your own school or organization's readiness to kind of tackle AI? So, Ravi just talked about a couple of potential use cases, and these are things that, obviously many, many companies are exploring. But yeah, where is your confidence level? We're seeing lots of interesting survey results, some of which we'll talk about as we kind of go through the conversation today. But interesting to see where people are.
Oh, very interesting.
Yeah, I would say this is, I think, very reflective of kind of where people are in the space right now, is if things are happening super quickly, and are we really ready to kind of tackle some of these tools? So it's kind of nice to see this reinforced. That was our kind of, I would say, gut feeling based on what we're hearing from our customers. So I think this is probably globally true. And then this is really more kind of around where you are with your journey. Where do you feel like you are in your ability to kind of evaluate tools? Some districts or states have very clear guidance policies and things to support that, and some don't. So we're curious just kind of where you're coming in to the conversation today.
Wow, we have 100% out of 1 so far. Yeah. Again, I don't think surprising, right, Kelly, given what we've already been hearing. So
Yeah.
there's definitely a lot that we need to work on collectively within education to help each other feel a little bit more confident here. Yeah. I'm glad to see some folks out of 3, though. That's that's good.
Well, that's also why I think this is such a great event, actually, and a super timely one to be, dedicated to what's happening and how people are using AI tools in instruction. So, and I'm also happy that to have this session that we're talking about today as one of the first ones, aside from the plenary, because I think a lot of what learning will happen over the next 2 days will help people feel more confident. So that's the goal, at least. Okay, so Ravi.
Yeah, let me spend a few minutes on some of the issues we have grappled with as we built our AI tech, and therefore I think those are things that we are realizing as we're having conversations with school districts and the nature of the technology itself that we are building. And we arrived at 6 things which are our guiding principles, and this speaks to some of the things that becomes important as you evaluate AI tech. And I also have a slide later that talks about some of the specific questions that you can ask. And we also have a framework for you and your school districts to really go through and evaluate what are the things that you need to evaluate as you're looking at AI solutions. So, of course, AI has so much potential. I'll speak to the guiding principles, but it's not perfect. Several pitfalls with AI still. And like any technology, if we harness it the right way and if we use it the right way, we can put it to great use. And as we grappled with this, these are the guidelines that we arrived at and we built technology to. First is human-centered. By its very nature, education is a very significant human element. And technology augments what people do. It does not replace them. So our focus is how do we build the right tools and how do we put the right tools in the hands of the educators and the people who are going to help the students. So that is one. And the second is built with fairness and bias resistance, right? And if you go to ChatGPT and ask for a story involving 2 people, right? One a homemaker and one a business person, Who do you think is the woman and the man in that story? I tried that 5 months back. It was exactly the same. It always brings out the woman as the homemaker and the man as the businessman, a business person. And I asked that question today. It was the same. And I wanted to check, okay, can you give me 10 different variations of potential names, and every time all 10 of them were women's name as homemakers, right? So this just shows that if there is, there is bias. We know that AI is biased. So how do we build that? How do we build that into our software so that we can reduce bias and bring more fairness? So that is another big focus area for us. The third is around stringent data governance and what happens to the data of the students. How do you ensure privacy? How do you ensure this doesn't go out and into other systems? So that's another big area for us. It's critical. Last year alone, PowerSchool had 1 billion attacks on our data, which we had to fend off, because ultimately data is a lifeblood for AI. And you want to have the resources that you're protecting the data of your users of the schools that you have. So that is, again, a very important guideline for us. Fourth is around transparency and user control. We see that some of the educators that are using AI are a little skeptical. And we believe some of that skepticism is because they don't understand what is happening behind the black box, right? And that's very hard, because a lot of times AI is a black box. It's giving a recommendation, but how do I know it's giving the right recommendation, right? How do I know I should act on it? So, and we believe that if we can disclose the logical reasoning behind it, and if our users really get visibility into how those decisions are being made, they'll be more informed and they'll be more comfortable. So again, that is something that we are building into our tech. And also around user control. Where should it be used? When should it be used? And what is the content, or what is the data that can be accessible? All that we want to make sure that we put the control in the hands of the schools, as well as the teachers who are using the tech in the classroom. And then other two are digital equity and accessibility. We make sure that we're building applications that avoids discrimination and promotes equal access, right, to all students. And again, ethical use in terms of, again, there are a lot of ethical questions. I'll give an example. So let's say, a higher ed student looking to decide what colleges they want to get into. Our data can look into that and say, and they have, let's say, as high aspirations as they should. Now, the data can look at it and say, hey, you know what, based on, the history of the school you're going to, the grades you have got over the last 6-7 years, we believe you should really focus on tier 2, tier 3, right? And those colleges are too high for you. That's an example where data could tell you, but we feel it's ethically wrong to really go and share that with the students. So there are lots of questions around this, and these are things that we make sure we keep central when we build our solutions. So those are our 6 guiding principles. And if you go to the next slide, I think if you're a school that is evaluating what should I look at when I'm looking at different AI solutions? And in the last conference I went to, there are at least 500 companies that are building AI solutions for schools, right? So what are the questions that you need to ask? Again, it depends on what is important to you, but some of the questions I would ask is, what is the quality of the output, right? Is it accurate? Is it reliable? For example, if I go back to that 2 examples that I showed, creating assessment questions for teachers. Is it right? Is it accurate, or does it have errors? Because still, there are, for math, for example, is not 100% bulletproof in the kind of questions and assessments that AI does today. It's becoming better, but still, it's something that needs work. Is it reliable? So if a student is is talking to the AI and getting inputs. Is it the right kind of reliable things? Is it be taught the right things, or is the AI hallucinating and creating facts? Is creating what it presents you as facts is another known issue. So that is one thing to really get a hands-on look at. What is the quality of the output provided by the AI? The second thing is, how secure is the data? We spoke about it. What is the how is the data secured? How private is the data of my students, my users, and the whole data governance that's built around it. Third is, I would ask, how easy is the learning curve, right? Is AI integrated into everyday workflow? So that you don't have to go to a different application, copy and paste it, and then bring it back into the applications you use. Could be an LMS or it could be an assessment system. So how easy is the learning curve? Is it integrated with the tools you're already using? Becomes an important question. Does the system have sufficient context? Does it know, if it has sufficient context about the user, it gives much better results. So is that something that is built into the AI? And I would call out another thing, which is the system, is it system agnostic? Schools today might use 10, 15 different systems from different companies. So does it work with any system you may have? Does it pull data from any of those? From different vendors? That becomes an important thing, so that it's got the widest context it can to deliver value. And finally, I think a question to ask is, that we've been proven at scale in terms of performance, speed, in terms of quality of responses, in terms of reliability of working at scale. So those are things I think would be useful to ask as you're evaluating solutions. And if you go to the next slide, we have, and this is available to you, you could, if we have a checklist and the interview guide on how to evaluate AI applications, you can scan that, and that's an entire guide that is available to you. We believe that would be useful and helpful to you. You want to take a minute to scan that? Or Michi, are we sending these over later, or?
Yeah, the QR code is on the following slides anyway, so should be, we can keep going. And then you can just continue to scan it. It's on here. Yep.
Got it. So, these are excerpts from the framework that we have. One is, what are the questions to ask when you're thinking about data privacy and security, right? How is the data collected and stored? What are the risks of when you move the data between systems? Is it vulnerable for others to get access? How is the student and district data used to train the AI, right? So is your data being used to train the AI models, or and does that pose risks to your data? So that's questions to ask. What are kind of guardrails does the system have so that the data is not exposed to the internet? So those are questions to ask when you're evaluating the privacy and security aspect of the system. There's around model performance and accuracy. Again, we spoke about this. Are there mechanisms to, it would make errors, but is there mechanisms to detect it and address and eliminate as soon as it is made? Are there false or nonsensical information that is being generated? How do you ensure the models are able to detect relevant patterns in unseen data, right? So, you're getting output. You don't know what is the data that the system is looking at and how it is arriving at those patterns. So being able to understand that and seeing if they're reliable is an important thing. Is this so there are lots of generic models that we could use to create AI applications. Are these relevant to the specific needs of your districts? And how does the application allow users to provide feedback? If you do find something amiss, are you able to provide feedback? Are you able to give inputs to the system so that it can correct itself? Those are aspects as you think about performance and accuracy of the system itself. And again, bias and fairness, we do know that there is, systems are biased simply because AI is learning from what is out there. And what is out there is, it's looking at the world and making and deciding what is right. And what is out there is biased in many cases. So how do we detect and address and eliminate this bias? How does the system that how does the system you're evaluating do this? So questions around that are valuable in understanding whether it's the right solution. And finally, what are the processes used to ensure the results are presented are appropriate? I gave an example earlier of which colleges should you apply to, right? Is that really an appropriate thing to present, or is that something you hold back and give it to somebody else who might be able to act on it? So next slide, Michi. Interoperability and explainability, right? Does the end user understand why a certain recommendation is being made by the system? Are they able to go in and are you able to go in and see why that's made? Understand that. Do you have the controls to override it if you feel so? So those are things you would look for when you're looking at user control. Scalability, sustainability, right? What mechanisms are in place to make sure it's consistent. Now, by its nature, AI is a lot of the Gen AI, it's not deterministic. If you ask a question today, and if you ask the same question tomorrow, it could be different simply because it's probabilistic. It's using a probability model to see what is right. So it would be different. But is the accuracy changing? Is it consistent in terms of accuracy? That's again important to look at. How will it, with massive data, massive traffic, does the system have the ability to handle all those at complexity? What mechanisms are in place to optimize resource usage, right? So when you start operating at large scale, you might, one is you might need a lot of computing resources, which impacts the cost. And also it could be, it impacts the performance. So you're waiting for a long time to get responses from the AI systems. So that's another important thing to look at in terms of how these are optimized. What are disaster recovery plans? If there's a system failure, how do we recover what we have? How do we get back to where we were before the occurrence? And so those are some of the important things, questions to ask as you look at scalability of the system. And finally, interoperability. What does the system integrate with the solutions that you're already using? Does it give a seamless end user experience so that you don't have to, I'll give an example of seamless experience. Okay, so AI is helping the teacher create assessment questions, but then how easy is it for the teacher to push that into the assessment systems they are using, deliver it to the student, get responses, and then get it auto-graded? And so there's a workflow there, and how seamless and easy is it to use is an important question. And finally, how are users trained on it? How are they used to get the best out of the AI systems? So these are some of the snippets from the document that we are sharing with you, and I think we hope this gives you a good framework to really assess the different systems that you're looking at. There are so many wonderful systems, and it's evolving so fast. So we think having a framework to assess these is going to be helpful. With that, let me hand it over to.
Thanks, Ravi. So the next part of our conversation really is, let's think not just beyond like the systems and kind of the checklists we just were talking about for evaluating tools and vendors you might be exploring for using AI, either for yourself in your classroom, or maybe if you're at a district level thinking about something that's provided more broadly. How can we be thoughtful and prepared really for adoption and use of that AI? So we'll kind of move into that vein now. So as we think about what we're seeing with research, we asked you a couple of questions intentionally, but we also have been paying attention to what we're hearing from customers and from other organizations that are doing surveys with people on using AI. So, and this, I wonder about this first number actually. So, we had a thing through Ed Week that was given, and they asked, and this was actually published, I think in January, at the very end of January. So relatively recent, of students using generative AI as part of their kind of academic experience. and about 60% of them reported using it. I'm wondering if that number is even higher, just even a couple of months later. But 60% saying that they're using it. Interestingly, though, and that same thing, we asked teachers, what about you using AI? Only a third of them reported using AI in the classroom, and a chunk of those didn't even know what we were talking about. So it's interesting. We see students using it right now, and then we see not maybe the same adoption with teachers. And there's a kind of a disconnect too, where when we look at data, and there was something from actually, I think it was from Michigan Virtual, did a whole kind of panel study on using AI for K-12 and for higher ed. And what they found from their research was that if you talk to administrators or people that are at district levels, they seem to have a much more, I would say, positive outlook on what's happening with AI. And people that are actually in the classrooms tend to be a little bit more hesitant. So even within organizations, there can be a little bit of a mismatch in terms of how people perceive the use of AI. Not surprisingly, and we asked, as part of our presentation today, how many people felt like their organization was in a good spot to really address AI use. 8 in 10 teachers reported that their district didn't have clear AI policies even in place to help them make some decisions and have some guidelines on how they might be using AI with students. Other thing that we do an annual survey every year that we call the Education Focus Report. And we ask every year about data. And, one thing that Ravi said is that, AI is extremely dependent upon high quality data to work and work well. But we also have a lot of districts, and I think this is true for everybody, where you're going to have disconnected data sets, which makes it really challenging for AI to do its job because it isn't pulling things from the same spot. So you've got everything kind of scattered everywhere. So the number one challenge that districts reported when we did the Ed Focus report, this is just from this last year, was connecting data across systems. Now, that has been a concern long before AI was on the scene, but now it's becoming, I think, hyper important to pay attention to, is where are those data sets that AI should be interacting with when we bring AI into your data. And that's really kind of our focus, I think, when we think about it. How can we bring AI into what you're already using so that you're not sending things out? And then finally, I think everyone's aware of some of the cybersecurity risks we've had with data privacy. Student data is at risk often from things like ransomware attacks. Well, why did that figure into the AI conversation? Well, when you think about it, if you're sending student data out, not only are we at risk for cybersecurity from external attacks, but we may be inadvertently exposing student data to other, agents and things that are unintentional. So we have a couple of considerations to think about and things that are kind of guiding our conversations. So when we think about students using AI, one thing to think about is, do we have something in place to support student use of that? Are we providing students with opportunities and learning opportunities to find out how they can responsibly and critically use AI? So I think that one of the nice things about the next 2 days is you're going to see a lot of examples that people are sharing on how they're doing things with students. It's really important that we have that conversation because they're using it now. As always, they're a little bit ahead of where we are in terms of using technology. And then for teachers using AI, critically important is supporting educators. And one thing that we're seeing is just a lack of kind of consistent training and PD around using AI. And again, that's why I really love the idea of SequoiaCon, kind of bringing some PD to the conversation. But we need to really make sure that teachers are comfortable. I would say that's probably the biggest barrier to their use, is that kind of black box and not really understanding what exactly it can do, or only putting it in the bucket of this is what kids will use to cheat versus some of the other really amazing things that AI could do. All right, for AI policies, how can we provide guidance around that? There are sessions I saw today that are on the agenda around providing guidance. We'll give you a couple of ideas. We have resources as well. But the more you can kind of give guardrails, the more comfortable people feel, because they just have some parameters within which to work. For data and efficiency, that's something that I think is really an ongoing conversation with just kind of data in general. But this idea of having data lakes or data oceans where we can have consolidated, protected, secure data that then can be super powerful when we think about data sets that are training AI and how we're trying to bring all those things to really get to that magical area of personalized learning. And then, of course, data privacy, that last one. And this is, of course, probably, again, something that most elite CIOs are really cognizant of, but bolstering our systems to protect against cybersecurity attacks to make sure that we're not exposing student data inadvertently as a result of all these things that we're gathering. All right, so we had some use cases that Ravi talked about earlier for using AI. So these are just some ideas. The reason I wanted to bring up this slide is sometimes it's a good idea when you're starting out thinking about where we're going to use AI or how we can be prepared for AI, is kind of focusing on an area of need. So it might be that your area of need is really on administration of workflows, and maybe you want to focus some of your AI efforts at the district level on how you can ease some of those pain points and workflows to help support administrators. Now, when we think about all the things AI can do, there's no reason you'd have to focus on a single one, but sometimes it's good to narrow the field. We see a lot of people obviously moving into either autonomy and personalization, so having students interact with things that can customize and basically modify content and provide the right content for them. That might be an area that's of need. See a lot of potential for learners who might be English language learners getting access to content that's relevant. Democratization of data maybe goes back to that data question of siloed systems. How can we kind of make sure that we have, if we're going to have AI that can interact with us and help us better understand data, we've got to make sure that everyone's got access to it. So anyway, as you think about how you're looking at AI, maybe think about one or two areas that might be really important areas to start kind of your efforts so that you can test it out, see how things are going, and then kind of broaden that use out as things emerge and as needs emerge within your own school or organization. So what we also know from research, and this predates many things, the research from Hall and Horde on change management, I think this is probably one of the most important conversations we can have, is not just thinking about the adoption of a technology tool, but the adoption of really good practices and high quality use of those tools. And that's really kind of been the focus of most of my career, is kind of more of the change management side of it. So for years and years, there have been studies, and the most recent version of this from Hall and Horde actually was published in 2019. Change management matters. And so what their research showed, and this was research that was over the course of 3 decades, when we have successful initiatives happening across district levels, it doesn't matter what the initiative is, what are the important ingredients that have to be in place to have that work and work well? And one thing that I love about this particular kind of a framework is that it helps us kind of dive into where we may not be as strong as we prepare for use. So one thing I would say is that traditionally in education, at least here in the States in K-12, we understand the importance of professional learning, and we typically understand having an implementation plan and monitoring progress and then the ongoing support. And we've got systems and people that do that. Where we tend to fall down, I think, are these first two strategies. One of those is, what is our context that's going to help people change and feel comfortable with it? And the other one is, how do we communicate that shared vision when this is working and working well? And if we don't have those two things in place, even if we have the other 4 strategies working and working well, there's such a gap with missing those first two. So if we kind of move ahead and think about how we could actually create that context conducive to change, we identified 5 areas that might really help you create that context for change. So when you think about these 5 areas, what instructional practices would make this change an easier one for educators? How can we engage stakeholders in a way that makes that change more comfortable for them? Do we have technology capacity? How do we make our technology systems conducive to that change? Do we have strategic alignment among our leadership in our district level? How can we make sure that's conducive? And then finally, data governance and policy. So we think about instructional practices. We're just going to highlight just a couple for you quickly. I would say one of the most important ones to think about, and this is also not a new idea, but standards aligned instruction. AI is going to rely really heavily in terms of providing content and suggestions for student learning that are based on how they're doing against identified standards. So making sure there's understanding of standards and how those kind of inform our work with students. And that goes into this next idea of data literacy, making sure that we've got a context for looking at data and making high quality instructional decisions. If we have human-centered AI, the human who is helping to guide that AI needs to understand how we can leverage data to make good decisions. And then finally, comfort use for technology. I think COVID accelerated that to some degree. We have people that didn't use technology before that really had to, acclimate quickly, but making sure they're comfortable using technology also with AI. So maybe one thing to do is as you think about PD for teachers, embed pieces of AI within the PD so they get a chance to try it as a user would and get some comfort level there. All right, stakeholder engagement. As we think about our stakeholders, one thing that a lot of people fall down on with any initiative is communication planning. How are you communicating the use of technology? How do you communicate now for things that are happening at the district, school, or classroom level? So think about a communication plan. And then, of course, always building in ongoing professional learning. We all know that like just the one and done doesn't work. But for something like AI that's changing so rapidly and so dramatically, probably a good idea would be to have a kind of a hyper focus on making sure that's kind of happening all the time. And then Robbie brought this up earlier with feedback loops in terms of how we should be giving feedback in terms of what happens with AI. We also should be gauging what's happening with our users who are using AI, students, parents, teachers. So if you think about the communication planning and having a change model, make sure that we have ways to monitor what's happening and then adjust if needed. All right, tech capacity. This is one where I feel like we may be in a better spot in most systems simply because of COVID. But making sure that your support staff and your support systems are in place to support the change. Do they know what's happening with AI or which tools are going to be used? Has your support staff, your help desk, gotten the training it needs to help the end users that are going to be maybe engaging with AI? Also having that scalable data system. This is something that I think is a core need. It's fundamentally has to be in place, is having data sets that are in a reliable, scalable system. And I think, that's going to be an ongoing conversation. And then also equitable access to technology. We had a lot of one-to-one initiatives that happened even before we had COVID, but it became increasingly a thing. However, as we've seen, there's not always wireless, the kind of wireless bandwidth we need for students. So making sure they can even access some of these tools is critically important. All right, strategic alignment. This is one of my favorite ones. Have an intentional approach to change management. I saw there's actually a session here for SequoiaCon that's on a change management model. I'm really interested to see what they recommend there. We have some models that we use, here at PowerSchool to help people with change management. But having an approach like that can just really help you plan out what you're going to do. Where are we now? Where are we going? How do we get there? Cross-functional leadership structures. Somebody mentioned, who's here, and I can't remember the name, that they were part of an AI task force. So do you have a group of people from different organizations that are helping to guide the work so that everyone's aligned with the paradigm shifts, with practices, with things that are going to be really affecting all of our stakeholders across the area? And then the other thing is, are we aligned? Let's look at our policies. Do we have procurement policies that are in alignment with some of our data governance policies that are in alignment with our guidance for how we're going to select AI tools? I'm older than probably most of you on this call, but I remember back in the day when Web 2.0 tools took over the world, where everybody was experimenting with Web 2.0 tools with students. That was really kind of a PII nightmare because for good reasons, teachers were trying to engage students in some really exciting things and exposing data all over the place. So having alignment, hopefully we've learned from that experience. Then the last thing, data governance and policy. We talked earlier about, having needs for, things that can combat cybersecurity threats. Having some data privacy practices. That's one thing I think we probably need to be more cognizant of in the space, is how are we protecting student data And are we making sure that when we're using AI that we are really thinking about that? You know, do we have compliance policies in place to protect with FERPA and COPA and all those things that are really necessary? Just some kind of quick talking points there. But the other thing to think about in terms of the shared vision for change, some of you may recognize this is an oldie but a goodie. This is the Nostra change model. When thinking about that vision, that shared vision of change, I love this one because it identifies the necessary components for successful change and what is the result if one's missing. And so if you have people asking why we're adopting something or why we're doing something, it's typically indicative that we didn't really set the vision. Anxiety is typically a reflection of not understanding, not having skills to tackle something. Resistance comes from a lack of incentive. Frustration might come from a lack of resources to support that change. And then the feeling of not getting anywhere, going anywhere, being on a treadmill is maybe not having a broad understanding of what the action plan is for something to roll out. So for every initiative we did when I did in my previous world, this was kind of our true north of preparing for change. So this may be something you'd want to have a conversation around if you are part of a task force. This also is a great tool to use for people that are instructional coaches or those who can listen for some of these things and help to address them. I would say that if I were to pick one of these areas that's probably of prime concern right now for that shared vision, it's probably anxiety if we're talking about teachers not feeling comfortable. So that idea of building skills is, I think, super important. Okay, so we have another QR code for you. We actually have all kinds of resources available that are, not really about specifically platform solutions. We obviously have that as well, but just kind of in general, what are some things you should think about? We've got a kind of a self-assessment that's an AI readiness survey to help you kind of ascertain where you are on that journey. We also offer training on AI and not even around our own platforms, but just AI basics. And we have something called Proven Practices that really does workshops and trainings around things like change management. So we have resources to support that as well. And then also some guides around technology implementation and adoption. QR code is there. I think one thing to be paying attention to is with all of the people that are coming out with tools right now for AI, making sure they provide resources to support you. And we have some of those on hand.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Ravi and Kelly, both. And definitely let us know, folks, if you would like any of these, and we will get in touch. Just head over to the QR code, and we will get in touch with you all. So, yeah, so we're at that point now where I believe we have 5 minutes, but we can also stay like slightly longer for folks if you have any questions. So feel free to pop onto the Slido and ask questions if you're shy and you want to be anonymous, or you can also just put them in the chat, or even just unmute and do that. We're a pretty intimate group, so I think we can take that live as well. So yeah, any questions? Seeing that there's a lot of information from what I've heard from the organizers. Of course, they will be sharing out the recordings, but yeah, any curiosities, questions, things not answered? Or maybe Ravi and Kelly did a great job and there's no need for that. I know most of you are still, feeling a little bit unsure about this new age that we're really entering, but hopefully after this session, there's a little bit more, clarity on what could be the way forward here. So yeah. Great. Maybe we'll give it another minute if anyone is still kind of sitting on a question, and then I don't know if Kelly and Ravi, you have any closing remarks or anything like that that you all would like to share.
I feel like I just talked a lot.
Ravi, on your side?
I think I've not looked at all the resources that Kelly had shared. I think they're really going to be very valuable for anybody in the space. So
yeah, let me actually pop back to that slide really quickly. Oh yeah, and not to forget, folks would love, or the SequoiaCon folks would love to hear some thoughts. So just feel free to share your feedback here, or like have the QR code as well for them. Lots of QR codes today. Yeah. So this one is pretty easy to remember. I'll pop back here. Yeah, lots of resources for you all. So we're here to support you 100% and looking forward to being part of your journeys as well. PowerSchool is present in a lot of your schools and districts, I'm sure, so we're happy to be of support in any way. Great, one last call for questions. Otherwise, we will close and hope everyone has a wonderful day. All right. Wonderful. Thank you so much, folks. Have a great day and don't hesitate to reach out.
Thank you, everyone. Have a
Thank you
great
so
day.
much. Bye.